What's up, Lions of Liberty fans? You can now support this show on Patreon and get exclusive access to bonus audio and video content, including Conspiracy Corner, Degenerate Gamblers, bonus segments with guests, and so much more. Head on over to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty.
Welcome to Electric Liberty Land, here on the Lions of Liberty podcast, your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty with your host, Brian McWilliams.
Hey everybody, it is Brian. Quick pre-show note here because you'll remember I tried to use my work computer to record last week's show, had an insane amount of issues, mostly with the computer crashing 20 times during the show recording. This time I tried again because I figured I'm going to try to make this computer work. It's much easier for me to use than my laptop. It's sitting on a desk right next to the microphone. What could be easier? And plus, it's a faster computer. It should work better. More sound, better sound for my people out there. And what happens is I triple check the microphone before the episode recording, and we're trying to record with our conferencing software we use for my guest today, Laura Crawford. I triple check the mic settings. I test the mic settings. All is well. Record the episode. And then, of course, I go to play it back, and the goddamn thing hasn't used the mic once. So it's computer audio, meaning that it's going to be a little bit echoey. It's going to be cavernous sounding. It's not going to be the beautiful melodic tones that you are used to. So you have my sincerest apologies for the quality of the show. It is listenable, though. So please do listen to it. I promise you can get through it. Not only for me, but for my guest, Laura. So let's kick it.
All right. Hey, out there, my beautiful, well, I don't know if you're beautiful or not, but you listen to this show, so you must be at least mildly attractive. But welcome, mildly attractive listeners, to Electric Liberty Land, episode number 85, in which I welcome in a very special guest, a comedian friend of mine. I have performed with her. I have a recorded podcast with her before. She is the co-host of Up Close and Political, which is the podcast I was on, and also is the media manager for Profiles and Eccentricity on the Up Pops network. Laura Crawford. What's happening, Laura?
Hello. Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, it's a joy and a pleasure. I mean, maybe I'm speaking too soon, but I'm going to presume it's going to be a joy and a pleasure.
Always a delight. Coming at you from Revelations Productions, my day job office. Yes. The conference room, beautiful.
It's very white in there. It's nondescript. Are the walls the kind you could draw on? That's my big question.
No, they are not. This is just like cells where we're kept to do work.
So like go in the cog machine, cogs, where there's no visual stimulus for you whatsoever.
Actually, today was wild because we had both free pizza and puppies in the office today.
Oh, wow. Were they on the pizza? Was that a topping that was requested?
Yeah, they were. No, one of the people in my office, I think they got some dogs were under their house or something. So they were in these little teeny puppies.
They just found a gaggle of dogs just living under the house?
Someone, I think, had dropped like a box of dogs. Had abandoned it.
Oh, man, that sucks. That kind of reminds me, though, like when I was growing up, my family just got not a box of squirrels. They were a nest of squirrels. The mom had died, and the mom had died like in our whatever heating duct. So it smelled like squirrels on fire. And we were like, well, that can't be good. But then my dad goes in the attic, and he opens the attic door, and just 5 baby squirrels fall down. And we ended up raising the little thing. Yeah, it was adorable. They'd climb all over you. We'd open the door. They'd run out and climb up the trees. They'd come back in. They'd poop on your shoulder. And then one day, they just never came back. And we went, okay, time to be free has come, little squirrels. It's adorable.
It's the season turn.
So tell me a little bit about, we were on the podcast before. I was on episode 6 of Up Close and Personal. And, I had the feeling from that podcast when we were talking that you were not the classic Los Angeles progressive. I know you're not from LA, you're Massachusetts gal.
Yeah.
And you were telling me, I think you've been moving around the last couple of years. You moved a bunch as well. So you've been getting a good glimpse of the country. But tell me a little bit about your politics. I mean, what do you, how do they evolve? What do you view yourself as now? And then we'll start chatting about some current events.
Yeah. Well, it's been interesting because it's like you're not the only person. I've talked to people in LA comedy who I get these messages, and it's like we're gay guys in the 50s. They're like, hey, I noticed you seem to have a predilection for this. You seem to be of the lifestyle.
Totally. It's like, we need like secret handshake clubs. My wife was saying the same thing, like Universal Music Group. This, people are like, hey, I think like you think. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah.
I got the handkerchief codes. Like, right lapel means you're into Pappy Cannon. Left lapel means you like piss games, whatever.
And sometimes the two. You just
and sometimes the two. Yeah. There's that guy. So I grew up in Massachusetts, where he has that reputation as being very liberal. Right. Very, very, very liberal. And my family was never political or never really involved in politics, so they weren't really about that. But through school, it seemed like if you were like intelligent, you get a reputation for being like, liberal. Or my mother would say, oh, you turned your high school newspaper into a liberal propaganda rag. Things like that. But it's like when I was a young person, it was Bill Clinton, the president forever. And that sort of like being a Democrat at that time was just sort of, normal, mainstream, not really like either extremes of stuff like that. And I worked for the Massachusetts Service Alliance, which is part of the governor's office. So Mitt Romney was the governor at the time. And then, when I was in college, I worked for them. And I worked for a number of nonprofits. And I worked for one that was about trying to keep gay marriage legal, because Massachusetts was the first state where we legalized it. And so I was working for a lot of liberal causes in that sense. And, my school experience, I was part of the Gay Straight Alliance. It was a big thing. And this is back when
you got to have your causes. I mean, if nothing else, to meet people.
Yeah.
You're playing both sides of the field. You got the gays, you got the straights. Pick your platter. It's like a See's candy box of just everything. A little nougat, a little chocolate. All right, go.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just thinking about that because we used to get Krispy Kreme donuts at our meetings and try to get people to come and be like, wait, donuts.
That was the big book. Never mind people getting along and having a dialogue, but donuts, get over it.
That's how you get people in the door. Okay, we have a whole pharmaceutical industry that's run by reps who just give doctors pizza and pens. So if you don't think it works, you're the fool. But we were just joking about the gays are trying to recruit with sugar and that, which is usually not what they do. So I was, heavily into that. And then, working in politics, and it's sort of like the given was that you were, pretty liberal. That was progressive. It's actually kind of funny that the word progressive just gets put with the left. And it's like, that's not fair. Is it?
It's weird because people are calling, saying, well, you can't say the left are liberals because that's, especially in libertarian circles, because they go, liberal comes from liberty, and we don't want to say that they're all for liberty because they're trying to be authoritarian in so many different ways. And so they still say, okay, well, we'll say progressive, but progressive means absolutely nothing. It's a subjective term anyway, and you're progressing towards what? It's socialism. All right. Yeah, it's these very loaded terms. So then when I was in college, I studied, in addition to studying writing and everything like that, I studied a lot of political communications. And it's kind of an interesting thing because it is actually more of a neutral look at politics than, people were really used to. I think they kind of assume that if you're studying politics, you must be studying it from a certain bent. But if you're just studying communication, you're literally just studying how well do these people talk. It doesn't matter what they say. How good are they at talking? Yeah. And when you do that, it's like you become, Peggy Noonan and, Ronald Reagan, Morning in America. You look at things like that and you're like, God, that is just powerful. It's effective. And so you're really studying what is effective versus what is ineffective. Here's a quick side tangent question for you, because, Adolf Hitler, one of the greatest monsters in history, without a doubt was a fantastic communicator. The guy really, he had that, he was like, if you want to look at the way to convince people any sort of crazy shit, you look at Hitler, you see the way he's talking. So do they actually talk about Hitler and use him as an example, or are they like, this is the third rail, we're going to stay away from the Hitler thing, as effective as he might have been? It's a little too far.
Yeah. Well, we were more talking about stuff that came about after, like TV and radio.
Okay, yeah.
It's like a major American thing. So not much about Hitler in particular. But what's funny is the more I look at World War II, the more you see stuff like, I think the only time the Japanese people had heard the emperor speak was when he said that they were surrendering.
Wow. That's a nice wake-up call.
Yeah.
That's like never speaking to your wife until she's like, I'm cheating on you and I'm taking the kids. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's interesting because a lot of people
talk more.
Exactly. A lot of political leaders, people didn't even know how they sounded, would have no idea, no frame of reference. So yeah, on that bent. And then I don't really know what happened with the world, but it seemed like, you get older and stuff and, live in different states. I live in North Carolina, I live in Washington. Mm-hmm. You sort of you start to, if you don't accept things as a given, if you start to ask people why they think this or why they think that, or you look at people who are more on the point of logic, rationality, numbers to back things up.
Right. Rather than just based on pure emotional reaction or
what seems to be true. Yeah. Or what seems to be true, or what they've been told is true, or what seems like the right thing. Or if you stop going based on that, you're going to come up with some ideas that people will think are conservative, libertarian. Yeah. They're not going to always, it's not going to always shake out to that. It's like, when you take those tests that are like INTJ, those Myers-Briggs tests, and they're like, oh, you're an introverted, rational, forward-thinking, whatever it is. I don't know.
Well, and a lot of libertarians, they say, are like a logic-based and don't have as much empathy, because a lot of our audience is libertarian. And it's interesting, we talk about communications as well, how these things, it's a real hindrance in a way to a lot of pushing forward libertarian / conservative thought, because people do say, oh, you've got no empathy, you've got no feeling for these people. And you go, no, that's not necessarily true. But, it's just more logic, thinking it through.
Yeah. I mean, it is how effective is empathy? Is empathy always the right answer? And is the golden rule always the right answer? Is that always right? And there are plenty of examples in life where we can find where being sympathetic, being empathetic, feeling for people, it can hold you back. It can be an impediment. It can be a bad thing.
God, watch the show Intervention, for Christ's sake.
I was just thinking of that.
The dangers of empathy right there, where it's just, where do you draw the line between empathy and then becoming enabling? And it's the same thing plays out with interpersonal relationships through to government relationships with citizens.
Yeah. I mean, how do you encourage or discourage? How do you incentivize or de-incentivize behaviors? Mm-hmm. How do you get people to act the way that you want them to? And
is it even right to get them to act that way? Aha!
Should you even want to give? I just take it as a given. I'm like, we want to control people, right? But we want to do it the right way.
I know, I do. That's why I started this podcast. But
yeah, I want to control people, influence them. So, but yeah, and then also it's like, I think the more I got into talking to people, the more I get to look at stuff to do with history and early man, science, biology, all this stuff that doesn't all add up to a lot of people. And then I think also the focus of the left seemed to shift in what their priorities were and what they thought was the most important things that they wanted to have conversations about, or the kind of language that you were allowed to use, or the kind of sources that you were allowed to use when talking about things. Those things changed. They do not stay the same. So I found myself more on the outs. And then also I think the more you do comedy, I think you also approach talking to people about things from the perspective of you want to make people laugh. And oftentimes making people laugh is saying the worst thing you can think of, because that's defying expectations. Humor is all about subverting expectations. That's why something is funny, because your brain was expecting one thing, you were given another. So when talking about politics, it's often funny to say to people the worst thing you can think of that they don't want to hear, or that they're not expecting to hear. And that might be something that they're like, oh no, we don't think like that. That's to the right, or that's libertarian, or whatever. That's foreboding thinking. Whenever you have knowledge or perspective or opinions that are foreboding, it becomes funnier.
Yeah, well, I agree with you completely. But like you're saying, there's so much emphasis now on this kind of language control, thought control in a lot of ways, because people are stopping themselves from even thinking or going down that road, especially comedians too, who say, well, I can't say that now because God knows I might lose my career. We look at James Gunn's old tweets. And actually takes us it's a good segue into one of the topics I want to talk about today. Which
is it an Africa thing?
Yeah, I
shouldn't giggle and cut you off.
It's just so ridiculous. Yeah, so for those of you who haven't heard about this yet, Vincent D'Onofrio, who is an actor I like, but I think he's a pretty progressive guy.
The Dick Wolf, he was on the Law and Order.
Yeah, Law and Order. He was in that old movie, The Cell, with Jennifer Lopez back in her heyday. He's been in a lot of interesting roles. He was a Lawnmower Man, if I really want to date myself.
Yeah. Crazy.
he was the retarded guy who became the lawnmower man.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, he totally was.
No, that's not Vincent D'Onofrio. That guy was way hunkier.
No, I'm telling you. Now I have to Google it in real time. Vincent D'Onofrio, lawnmower.
Nope.
Man. Hold
you
on.
might be thinking of the Running Man.
I'm telling you, man.
Not. And that's also based on a Stephen King book, and the plot's totally different. Pierce Brosnan's in that movie, though, right? He plays an evil scientist.
God, I'm not sure. I can't find it out. Well,
I think he plays a powerful man of diminished intelligence in another movie, but not that one.
I don't know. Well, we'll get to the bottom of this. Maybe not during this podcast. I told
you were wrong, and then you're like, oh, wait, we have no answer. We don't know.
Well, at worst case scenario, I rewatched the movie, which I love.
It'll be fine. Get some bad.
So Vincent D'Onofrio, he goes on Twitter and he basically asks his followers, he goes, hey, is it okay if I play a racist? And I'll read you the exact tweet. It was, I am going to ask a question to everyone that cares to answer. I have an opinion which I will not reveal, pardon me. Is now the right time, considering the world in which we live right now, for me to play a real to-life character who is irredeemable. His goddamn bad grammar is messing me up, so I want to correct it as I'm reading it. For me to play a real-life character who is irredeemable, racist in a dramatic series. That is sick, as they would write. So basically saying, is it okay for me to play a racist? And, you know, I want to hear your opinion on it, but before that, I will give you a clue as to mine, in which Leonardo DiCaprio is an unabashed, you know, he's a tree hugger. He's an eco-naut. He's an ultra
an eco-naut. Sounds like a weird cosmonaut. He's an astronaut, a cosmonaut.
Just an astronaut that lives in the trees with a helmet. He played that horrible racist character, though, in...
Blood Diamond? No,
not Blood. Well, he was horrible in Blood Diamond, too.
Django Unchained.
Django Unchained, thank you. Where he was the worst of the worst. And
he said he couldn't do it. He said he had like a hard time with it.
But he did it. And I applauded the living shit out of him because I said, you know what? That is so admirable to have the balls to do it, knowing that some people are going to be like, oh, that Leonardo DiCaprio. But he still did it. And now you see Vincent D'Onofrio saying, well, should I do this? Because the world has lost its collective mind in a lot of ways. Well, anyway, I don't want to take away any talk. So let me hear from you first, and then I'll add on. So what do you think of this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually was an actor for an age, did a lot of acting, a lot of theater for the ages of like 8 to 18. And then when I got to be 18, I didn't want to audition as an adult. I did not want to have my creative output be controlled about whether a man thought I was fuckable or not. Because I was like, oh, that sounds horrible, right? Like
unless you wanted to get ahead. No. I hear you go.
I know. It's like, do I want to pay my bills based on whether I think I'm attractive or not? Like, that sounds really scary. Not fun. And horrible. So, but it's bizarre to me because it's like the whole point. I almost understand in a sense what he's saying. It's not so far off that I'm like, this guy's bonkers. I don't know what the hell he's saying. Because, okay, if you look at the series like Mad Men, a lot of people were looking at Don Draper and they're like, that guy is sexist in the show, like very sexist in the things that are bordering on sexual assault and harassment and everything. But people found him to be so admirable in so many other ways that they almost sort of started to valorize him as this man's man, or they're like, oh, this is a real man. And so many women found that character attractive. It became like, is this bad? Because this is promoting this behavior. And it's bizarre to me because it's like he's saying, I worry that people would not be able to separate fact from fiction, and they wouldn't be able to separate me from. Is he saying I'm worried that people will think that I'm a racist if I play this character? Or is he saying, should we not depict racists?
Well, that's the question. And there's two. So there are a couple of different things that you mentioned that I wanted to play off there, because it was interesting with the Don Draper character. You know, like you said, there's a character who is without a doubt flawed. And exposing those flaws and creating characters like Archie Bunker. You know, when you have characters that are flawed, but you can show different sides of flawed people, or you could use it to expose a flaw of somebody and kind of shine light on that character for all to see by virtue of a TV series. That's a good thing. And at the same time, though, we were talking about some women were attracted to that man. a lot of that, it plays into a lot of the concepts going on right now with what's happening in the workplace with the whole Me Too movement, where you go, okay, some of these things are definitely heinous and horrible, but some of them, you say subjectively, it's very hard to say, okay, well, you're definitively wrong, because you do have people which are attracted to a certain type of man or have a certain type of preference for what does in fact turn them on. And like the Don Draper's an example. Some women are saying, wow, I like a man who takes charge, who is this type of person. And, when you get into, that's where I object to any sort of thing that would say we have to categorize one class of people as wrong if they exhibit this behavior necessarily, when you do have, it takes all kinds, as they say. I'm not saying that you should be able to go around whipping your dick out and peeing on people, because people are into that too. But you know what I'm saying, where it's a nuanced world, and that's one of the things. But then when you talk about whether or not D'Onofrio is saying, should we have racists? That's what really makes me afraid, is that if we got a situation in a world wherein people are going to object to these characters, which can show so much and can illuminate or can educate or can even show, like I was saying earlier, a different side to somebody where maybe they are an unabashed racist in one way, but you can see why on the other side. Having characters have nuance is not only better entertainment, but better education. So I'm really afraid of what can happen to art and how this is going to turn into censorship, where we're going to have vanilla characters marching along like fucking gingerbread.
Yeah, it's also funny to me because it's like I work in a lot of archival film and everything like that. And
oh, are you going through and counting how many times Burt Reynolds slapped a woman in every movie he's in? Because it's fucking nuts. Every goddamn movie, I shit you not. It's crazy. It's crazy.
There's a lot of women hitting. But it's bizarre because it's like, for the most part, there are examples of racism and stuff, but usually the racism in things from the 50s and 40s and 30s and 20s even is, a lot of the time it's sort of just implicit, like the presentation that makes us slightly uncomfortable. It's usually not incredibly overt. And when it is, it's often for humor. But there was horrible things going on, violent, horrible things, and they weren't depicted on screen. But because they weren't depicted on screen, that doesn't mean they didn't happen. So it's kind of like, it's an odd thing where it's like there's lots of violence against women and we never talked about it in the media, but it still occurred. So the argument that presenting in the media will make it happen more, I don't know if I agree with that. But then by the same token, I look at something like the rap music that came about in the 90s. And are you going to tell me that there was nobody who ever went into drug dealing or no one who ever shot somebody because they heard albums about it? Are you going to tell me that never happened? Right.
And pushing the culture of violence, the culture of misogyny, et cetera. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's going to, if that's the prominent thing, it's going to influence culture.
What you think is acceptable speech. And then truthfully, a lot of that audience was white teenagers. And, like we did develop a culture. We had a word for it, which was wiggas. You would say, oh, that guy's a wigger. Like, what does that mean? And it's like trying to adopt such and such a culture. And I understand the point that they're trying to make, which is that was a real part of life. Crime and drugs and misogyny and sexism. Those were all real parts of life. And they weren't admirable, but they were put in entertainment as admirable. And people did admire it. Like people started to think of that as normal, acceptable, cool, admirable, something to shoot for. And it wasn't just overrepresenting reality. It transcended that to be, we're making the reality. And I think if you're worried about that coming up, it is kind of possible.
Here's the thing, though, is that...
But if there's a character, like there's characters like in Breaking Bad, where that character, damn how much more interest people knew about meth from watching that show.
Yeah, of course. Well, going back to the wiggers thing, though, it's interesting. So you bring that up. And that's a good point. There was this culture, a culture that rose up from that. But in a way, I guess it's good because you had the rap, you had the misogyny, you had this culture rise up. But then, like anything, and this is why I encourage all of these. I encourage free speech, because when you have free speech, you have things rise up. They're in the public eye, and then you can summarily judge them and make people aware of just how dumb they are. And the wiggers movement died out, I think, within maybe 5-10 years. And people were like, this is pretty fucking dumb. And they're like, I should probably pull my pants up and start acting like a normal human being and not like a jerk off.
And not referring to every woman as a bitch or a hoe.
Right. It's like exposed and pretty quickly, I think you weed out those people, or they are shamed by the society at large into dropping that. Meanwhile, if you are, if it's quashed, then who knows what's happening in the dark corners of the internet. And that actually segues into our next topic, which is the Unite the Right rally. So let me take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be back with more Laura Crawford right after these.
We don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. Those epic words from Archilochus can sum up your ability to succeed or fail in business. I want to recommend Conversation Mat Time to our listeners as a way to hone your one-on-one conversation skills in a role-playing session that can help take you to the next level. During 25-minute sessions, you'll work through the best way to approach that raise, that interview, or that relationship with a practiced professional that will provide the confidence and experience you need to get paid what you're worth or take that interpersonal risk you've never been able to conquer. Just like in jiu-jitsu, the difference between a novice and a black belt is mat time. Train to win. Visit conversationmattime.com and take advantage of a free 15-minute consultation just for listeners of this show.
But I like the physical object.
Yeah, oh, totally. Me too. I want a stuffed animal in my face. That's what people want. I want them to sleep with it.
What are those like doll guys?
The Japanese body. Oh, what about the Japanese body?
No. I'm thinking of the 80s, the dolls that were the wrestlers that had the big...
yeah. My buddies? I'm thinking of a different guy. But yeah.
You could slam them and stuff. It's like you as a Cabbage Patch doll or something with very long arms.
That'd be awesome. And people could finally punch me in the face. Which actually, I know they wanted it.
What you can do, what a lot of people do is they take Barbies and stuff and you can wipe the face off with like nail polish remover and repaint it. I think you could take a Ken doll, wipe the face off, color its hair over so it's bald.
Yeah, I like it. I'm going to use this as a cold open, by the way.
Yeah.
I never do cold opens for my show, but that's what I'm going to use.
You'd be like, yes, and ask me. You're like, I do have no dick.
Well, you know what?
My critics are correct.
Thank God. Technology.
You have no balls.
That's why they call me the $6 million 6-inch man. Brand new metal dick. All right, you ready to do this? Ready to roll back in?
Yeah.
All right.
Terrible.
All right, we are back with Electric Liberty Land, episode 85. Now, I didn't remind you at the top of the show, but I do want to remind you, if you want any of the show links, if you want to get a link to any of the podcasts that Laura is on, Laura Crawford, my guest, just go to lionsofliberty.com/ELL85. And so, like I left off, I want to talk to you about the Unite the Right rally, because we're talking about groups of people. They were the last group we talked about were the mighty Wiggers of the 90s. Maybe 2000s. Yeah. And now, though, we've got
Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah. Oh, God. Jamie
Malibu's Most Wanted.
By the way, Jamie Kennedy story. He's a Philly guy, and he is a complete, unabashed psychopath when at the bar. And he doesn't even drink, I don't think. He came to watch
he does.
Maybe he does. Yeah, maybe he does. But as for I was watching the Phillies game with him, and he was like screaming at the guy across the bar, like you would not fucking believe. And I was just like, "Oh, Jamie, roll." Anyway, so
oh my God,
yeah,
X Factor,
right? Exposing him. So this Unite the Right rally happened, and everybody remembers the first one where it was Charlottesville, and it was a mess, and it was just violence and horribleness, and everything
got killed.
Yeah, like people got run over, and
Euro style. That's what I think of it. UK style. They got hit by a van. Or to your mother. That's terrible.
You are terrible.
Someone died.
I'm going to bleep this. I'm going to bleep all of it. You're going to lose your job. What was the company name again? Let me write it down. So this recent one happened.
The news.
You'll be the next guest on Tucker Carlson tonight.
I wish. Does he still have a show? I don't even know who they have anymore.
Tucker Carlson? Oh, yeah. Tucker's... Well, I only watch that show when I'm at the gym, basically. I don't really watch any... I don't watch any news shows in general. But if I was watching, Tucker's the one I probably would watch.
I'm not going to say that I love their messaging or whatever. Fox just makes better TV. Sorry, they do.
They know how to sell it, yeah. Although The Simpsons needs to be canceled, finally, mercifully.
Oh, I just talk about Fox News. They just make better news. Like, I just try to watch it, like, just to graphics and stuff like that, what they're doing with it. CNN, it's just not as good. I don't know what they're doing, but sorry, Ted. Sorry, Ted Turner.
Oh, I'm going to close my screen.
Yeah. So that article, one of the articles I read, it was just hilarious because they're just like, well, the right hasn't been very organized. They haven't been very successful in uniting. And it's like, they got a president elected. What are you talking about?
It's like they're doing all right.
They don't really know what they're doing. They can just control most of the government, but they're like totes disorganized. And it's like, are they? Because they seem to control everything.
Well,
people who are being like, the Jews, they're kind of disorganized. They run everything.
They've got all the banks. They've all the terror. Well, it's like, I expect Jeff Goldblum, they're going to blame it on chaos theory. Jeff Goldblum's like, well, butterfly flapped his wings and Trump got elected. That's what these people are writing it off as.
Yeah, they're like, they can't get it together. It's like, that seems like they can, and that was your whole problem.
Right, and they're judging. But it's funny though. This Unite the Right, like 40 people showed up or something like that.
Yeah,
from the reports. I mean, it's just, and what a bunch of idiots. I don't know why. After seeing what happened last year, you got to be a special kind of hardcore dipshit to roll out there, knowing you're going to have all these protesters, all the media coverage. Like, I don't know what you're thinking. These are people who must have already been fired or have just been released from prison from white skinhead gangs. I don't know who else is going to this thing this morning. But here's the question, though, is like, so we were talking about the Wiggers, and I look at this.
Like they're a real group.
They're the next voting block that's going to be coming up. The 90s are coming back. I'm seeing people wearing blossom hats and bucket overalls. Wiggers are coming back. Don't wait.
Crushed velvet, Wiggers, crushed velvet. These are cuts. I just love what we talk about. We're like stalker moms, NASCAR dads, guys who think they're not white.
The skids overalls that were plaid. I lost my train of thought. Okay, so here's the point. So these people, though, they got out there, right? They marched. They got beaten up. They got exposed. All the sorts of horrible things happened to them. Now 40 people come out. And, I say, okay, partially this is going to be attributed to they don't want to get doxxed. They don't want, they see all the counter-protesting and violence. So a lot of people are going to get driven away by that. But on the other hand, too, I think that this is why free speech, again, is vital. Because if you give people this platform, you say, hey, get out there, tell people all about your white supremacist views, and we'll see how dumb it is. And I think a lot of people saw, like, the Unite the Right, the first rally, I don't think a lot of those people necessarily knew what they were getting into. When they went, I don't think everybody was a white supremacist. I think they probably showed up and they're like, oh shit. And then they're like surrounded by people that are like, oh, double shit. This is a fucking shit Oreo I'm in. And now this year, you're seeing people were like, I didn't sign up for this crap. I'm not a white supremacist. I don't want to be associated with white supremacists. So I'm not going to this shit anymore. And, free speech is kind of that's what it's there for. That's one of the main factors.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. And it's, the marketplace of ideas. That's what people always talk about. What's weird about it is I think the people who went last year, they probably had never even gone to anything before. They probably never really felt like they had any reason to need to go to anything like that. And it's pretty easy to be a keyboard warrior. It's hard to go out there and protest. As far as protest and do anything, I'm not sure. But I don't really like this whole attitude that people have where they say like, oh, the Tea Party protests. Like most of the media was so dismissive of that, and making fun of them and only showing the biggest wackadoos and
cutting out the black people in the crowds at Tea Party rallies and stuff like that to make it seem like this white rally only kind of thing. Yeah,
and then same thing with the Republican convention and everything, and they really did kind of a butchering of this situation to make it seem like these people were a joke. Yeah, and the Nazis also thought Hitler was a joke. Most German people also thought that Hitler was a joke for a long time, and a lot of leaders. So thinking of anyone as a joke, even if they are a bit silly, is not always really smart for anyone. And it's funny how we've kind of turned from, oh, these people are wackos to, oh, they're really dangerous.
Right.
And I think a lot of people were not prepared to be part of the dangerous group. And they didn't want to be in the silly group, and they didn't want to be in the dangerous group.
Right, yeah.
Like, their only two options are you're ridiculous or you're a murderer. It's like, wow.
You're a Nazi. And I think a lot of
those are very extreme.
Well, let me ask you this: I was a big Ron Paul supporter, and then we thought that would roll over. All the Ron Paul people, we thought that they would roll over, and they were just libertarians, right? Yeah. We were wrong. They were just, there's a certain segment of people who are just in their nature. Counterculturalists, or they just want to be on whoever's on the outside that's causing the stir. Yeah, they want to be an underdog. They want to just be in there going, fuck you. And I think that was a lot of people that went from Ron Paul and probably went to Trump that might have gone to the first rally. Yeah. But then once Trump's in there, once the euphoria of, hey, fuck the system, we got in there, wears off, then they go, oh, you know what? I'm not really that into it. I'm onto maybe they're Antifa now. Maybe they're Alexandria Cortez Ocasio people now because she's now the outside anti-establishment kid.
Underdog, yeah. There are people who just don't like. They just don't like the. They don't like the default answer. They don't. Or I think with the polls in general, to me, it seemed more of an anti-war issue than anything else.
Yeah, well, that's very true. Anti-war and anti-Federal Reserve.
Yeah. But the worst stuff at that time was, I think, what was most attractive to people, that people were very anti-war, and they were really happy to see that people on the right were not warmongers the way that they had always assumed, that everyone on the right was a warmonger. Everyone wanted to have unlimited war in the Middle East forever, and they were all motivated by a desire to see Israel completely apocalypse.
Wade through rivers of blood and intestines. Aren't we all on some level?
Or they were apocalyptic, pro-Israel, psychotic. And that's just that just wasn't the case. There are plenty of people on the right who are very anti-war. They're very anti-big government, and war is a big government institution.
Oh, it's the biggest.
But that was also, I think, a good flashpoint to show how ignorant people were of the right, which is to say that they assume that everyone on that side loves war and loves Jesus and is the same. And it's like, ooh, that's kind of a disgusting stereotype that you created.
Well, especially because when we've seen both sides, as far as government entities anyway, seem to be in love with war, and and so quickly, people on both sides forget when they're candidates in office. All these people that were on the right that were anti-war when the Pauls were in office, now Trump's in there, and I where are they? And on the left, where are the anti-war people now as well? They were, when Obama was in office, where was the anti-war? But now Trump's in there. This is one thing that bugs me about people's criticism of Trump. They criticize him about the dumbest shit, and it's like, how about the fact that he wants to suspend in the NDAA, Congress tried to put limits on what executive power could do in regards to the war in Yemen. He says he's going to ignore it. How about we talk about that? How about we talk about murdering children in Yemen by virtue of the Saudis? Nobody's talking about war anymore. It's all just Trump's mistress, and it's like,
talking about microaggressions. Talk about macroaggressions. A bomb in your house.
A bomb through your roof is going to make a lot more terrorists than saying a wrong word on a college campus and pissing off somebody. It's just, plus
the more you make it seem like this is how you annoy people or parents.
Yeah, that's true. But here, let me ask you this question: do you think that what we saw at the most recent Unite the Right rally is actually probably a better snapshot of the level of white supremacy that actually exists in America?
No, I think Twitter is a good example of actually how much white supremacy exists in America.
Okay. Well, do tell.
No, I think it is. I don't know. To me, it's like throwing the label on someone of white supremacist. It's just like, that's very heavy. No.
Oh, without a doubt. Well, I'm saying legitimate. Let's say not to label anybody. As far as a legitimate assessment of people that would self-categorize as like, I am a member of Stormfront. Oh, did I lose you? Oh, shoot. I lost my Laura. I'm going to pause this. Okay. All right. We're back. So we lost Laura for a second. She's back on now. So we're talking about Unite the Right. So, okay. Your thoughts on the rally and the like I said, is this the real snapshot of like white supremacists? They're real white supremacists as would self-identify these 40 nerds that are coming up.
No. I don't think real white supremacists go to rallies. I don't think they do that.
They're hiding in the interwebs.
No, hiding in line, not hiding. See, that sounds weird to be like, oh, they're hiding. It's like, no, I mean, no one really wants, there are people who love to get into arguments online. Yeah. I think for a lot of people, what they really want to do is talk to people who think like them for the most part, and occasionally dip their toe into arguments that make them feel like they can really shove it to someone. So, I mean, to say that they're hiding online, it's like, I would go to a Reddit group to talk to people about skincare products. Am I hiding?
Right. Well,
am I hiding because I'm not going to every group and talking about skincare?
Yeah.
No. Would I go to a rally to talk about skincare products? No.
Wouldn't you? Let's be honest with ourselves.
Are there
my wife would.
Are there free samples? So it's funny to me to be like, oh, they're hiding what they're doing. Like they're like in a basement. They're like, don't come down, Mom.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like that. I don't think it's like that at all. I think it's just something that gives them a sense of direction in life. Not direction as much as a sense of the way you think the world is.
It seems like so many times Well, it seems like somebody. It's like it comes from wanting to blame somebody. And, for almost whatever psychosis is developed, be it white supremacy, you're blaming blacks and Jews and whatever else because of your lot in life, be it conservatives blaming Mexicans for stealing their jobs, be it the left blaming white people for oppressing, it's whatever,
oppressing every other group of people for all of humanity.
Well, insert your Mad Lib.
The message now, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. And God for and you're evil no matter what. But it's like a Mad Libs where you pop in your race group and oppression, and it's the fear factor, it's the frustration factor, it's the I guess the ego factor in a way, wherein it's hard to accept that maybe you just fucked up. So, and I think that's like the main centric factor to so many of the movements we see.
Yeah, I think people are sick of, I think people who are attracted to it, like, why are they attracted to it? Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty obvious why. I think that's what I think a lot of people don't realize is that no one wants to apologize.
Right.
No, it's not a fun position to be in. And especially no one wants to apologize for stuff they didn't do.
Yeah.
So we're effectively, as a culture, seemingly asking a group of people to apologize for stuff they didn't do.
Hundreds of years in the past, right? Yeah.
Which might be the right thing to do, but...
Well, I'll happily apologize, but I don't want to... I won't apologize by virtue of, sacrificing my life, my liberty, my prosperity, as, so many people seem to want white people to do.
Yeah, I mean, it is to say, by apologize, I mean to live their life like they are making up for something or have to penance, whatever it is. I grew up Catholic. So,
your rosary.
Confession and penance and all those things. I think if people want Americans in 2018 who have access to the internet to be repentant, to be solitary and to be quiet and humble and to exalt other people that aren't them because of ancestral mistakes. It's I was expecting a lot. That's not going to happen. And that's thinking too much of people, I think. And I think the more people insist that people be well-behaved and stick to a script when it comes to issues of race or sex, I think the more people are going to say, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I have unlimited access to information and options and technology and forms of expression. So it's bizarre that the more ways you have to express yourself, apparently the less words you can express yourself with, or the less thoughts or opinions are socially acceptable. And it's like you have very few, a million ways to say it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's almost, in a way, it makes me think about, Japanese society or Germans, for example, where you've got in Japanese society, it's all very buttoned up. It's very regimented, what you can and can't say in public, how your persona is, what and it's
because it's to save face. It's over being dishonored.
Shamed and dishonored. And in a way, we're moving towards that in a social sense in America, where, like you're saying, there's only certain things you can say, certain words you can use, certain ideas you can talk about in public. And what happens, in Japan, for example, you see this crazy obsession with, children, anime cartoon sex and women's panties, all sorts of, it comes out in weird ways is what I'm saying. And in American society, you're going to see the same type of thing happen, not necessarily in anime porn, but you're going to see the same thing happen wherein if you're forcing people to keep their thoughts and their most, their true feelings bottled up in private, they're going to express themselves in different ways, be it violence, be it these internet groups, be it white supremacist marches, be it whatever else. So it's going to find a way to get out. And it's just, and it's probably not going to be in the most healthy fashion.
Yeah. And I think what's also coming out is that I think more and more young people, you see in the polls that more and more young people are distrustful of the narrative of the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're distrustful of the whole, they're more into flat earth than they have been ever before. All these things.
What the fuck is up with flat earth?
But it's the flat earth thing and the Holocaust denial and a bunch of other things. And it's things that we all honestly very much took for granted that were just fundamentally true. We all accept this. But the more we push that, the more young people are going to say, why? Or why do we accept this?
Yeah.
Or why is this the truth? Or they're going to say, I'm not going to think like this. So I think the more we push a very hard to find, narrow, right or wrong, black and white, binary view of people's behaviors, and you're going to have a lot more people who want to be rebellious.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Form an identity. Kids are going to find racism even funnier.
Yeah, I agree completely.
They're gonna want to call each other the N word and the F word more than ever, and the R word or whatever it is. It's not going to be so much well-meaning. Not well-meaning. When I say well-meaning, I mean people do things genuinely because they don't know that it's bad. There's going to be a lot less things where you run into where they said the wrong thing because they didn't realize. It's going to be a lot more people pointedly for the point of shock and humor using it.
Well,
what you end up with.
Yeah, I mean, and it's true. Like in regards to using it as humor, hey, go for it. I mean, even as shock, hey, yeah, go for it. But I do agree with you that the more you try to hardline anything, the more you're going to have people rebelling. Which I guess, in a way, I'm trying to think what's the best way to get to our end result. Obviously, I'm fighting against censorship and for free speech, but maybe just for 2 weeks we need to have kind of like the Purge, they have that, it's a couple of days of killing everybody. Maybe we have 2 days of crackdown on free speech to let everybody know, like, hey, this is going to be pretty fucked. Let everybody get their jollies in, being like, oh, we need to rebel pretty hard. Maybe that's what will finally cure America of its worries about free speech.
Yeah. I think they need to. What I think with young people, especially, is they need to understand what free speech censorship really is, and be taught examples from books like The Joke and stuff like that, and Malone Canberra, and they need to, read a lot of the stuff that people wrote who were living in Eastern Europe. Were
they could really be murdered for what they're.
Yeah, you really were. Yeah.
Well, let's finish up with one. It's a little bit lighter, but later depending on your opinion in the last conversation. But Peter Strzok or Strizak or however you say his name, I still don't know. Strizak. It's like sounds like he's not Saved by the Bell. So Peter Strizak was finally canned by the FBI. And I don't know, have you been following the saga of his trials? Did you see his video of testimony?
I didn't see the video, but I was reading about him.
Did you see the memes? It's crazy meme.
He got physically escorted out, which is really? Do they really need to do that? It's so petty. It's so Trump. Whenever you see something like that, where he's like, escort him out, get him out of here. He's trash. He's got him, throw him on the street. I want to get his children's children. It's like very mob, like, good the guy out.
Well, he is. He's an Atlantic City mobster. Essentially, he's not president. But but what do you think? For you, where's your opinion on the Peter Strzok thing? Because I know I have my opinion that I think he's definitely biased, and I'm happy he was fired.
He's biased. Yeah, he's biased. I don't know what the protocol is for firing FBI agents.
Well, they said that's the
weird to say. I don't know what you get fired.
They said it was a different protocol than usual, and I'm like, well, what's the protocol? Like, how much do you have to fuck up then as an FBI agent to do it?
And then how many investigations? And what is the fuck up? Is it to say something like that, or
is it to kill the wrong person? Is it to? Well, we know for a fact. One thing you don't want to do is uncover existence of aliens, so they put you in the basement like Fox Mulder.
Yeah, that's bad.
So that's one. But even they couldn't fire him.
Sometimes it's like they abducted your sister, and then they wanted to put a virus in things, and there were bees, and crazy shit. But with this guy, clearly biased, and it's strange to me because they're like, why did he feel so emboldened to go on about it that way? Like he talked about it a lot in at work, and it was like. Whoa.
Yeah, I know, like his defense of the trial, or I know the trial, the questioning was so bizarre. You notice he's like, it's just, I was saying we, the American people, most times. It's like, what? And then it was all very odd. He was very smug, and it was shocking how entitled.
Was he the only person? And then also, it's like, is he the only person? Who's he talking about this with?
It's just
like, yeah, Peter, you're right. Good work.
Right.
What? Like, is he just I imagine he's just like getting coffee in the morning. He's like, hi. We're going to take him down.
We're going to take him down, guys. Cheers. All right, I'll see y'all at foosball later, about 3 p.m. in the break room.
Hi, guys. Fuck Trump. Good morning. How's the internet working? Is the printer jammed? Fuck
Peter,
Trump.
Your official FBI email cannot be fuck Trump.
Yeah.
That just, it's going to help everybody. Yeah, it's just the whole thing is bizarre. Now,
just keep it up here. Just keep it up here. People.
Well, I mean, I guess he was texting with his mistress, which is, I guess he's like, look, I'm already having a secret affair. what, this is as secret as it gets. I'm on a protected FBI phone, which is so dumb. I mean, look, I know a buddy who got fired for emailing in code about weed on a work computer. If you're the FBI, maybe you should be texting fuck Trump during an investigation on your work phone. Just me.
Yeah, on your work phone.
I mean, come on, man. Get a burner.
It's baffling.
Get a Tamaguchi and text on that.
But it is kind of amazing, people who work in government, though, how protected they feel in their jobs. They won't get fired.
Yeah. Well, and how much they'll stand up for each other. It's like this, you look at police brutality so often, and you've got, you have the police investigating the police. Like just here in L.A., or maybe it was Orange County, they just had to hire, or they just appointed a very special position wherein now the police can't investigate their own cause of death. Or a coroner. There's an outside coroner is what it was. Because the police department, the sheriff would determine what caused the death. And so they could just make up any sort of bullshit to cover their own asses.
Yeah,
so
suicide.
Yeah, right? Suicide again. 2 shots in the head.
It was suicide. JFK was suicide. We all saw it.
He had a little Tommy gun in the back. Yeah.
Yeah. What?
You see the same shit with the FBI, just protecting themselves. So I'm surprised. I was shocked. I really thought he was going to just be moved around, and then now, guaranteed though, we'll see him as a CNN correspondent. I bet you $1,000.
Yeah, he seems to have a big ego. The interesting thing, it's like if you go to the DMV and you think those people act like they don't give a shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's all over. That's not just that office, baby. That's everyone in the government. It's just like, yeah, I got a job. Like there are some people, I work in nonprofits and stuff, and there are people who work associated with the government who have worked very hard to get to that point, and they've done a ton of schooling to get low-paid jobs. Yeah. But for the most part, people who worked in government were very pro-government, and they wanted to keep Hillary keep on a similar track and everything. Yeah. But that floors me how he felt so like he just thought he was. A cowboy. He was a cowboy. He was acting like a cowboy. Like, not to sound like a 1970s commish, like, you're a cowboy. But pretty much that. He thinks he's Batman. He thinks he's a cowboy. I'm going to stop this.
Yeah, he's untouchable. He's Christian Slater, the untouchable. And he does look like Christian Slater. He's got that weird evil eye to him. But yeah, he's Christian Slater in fucking cuffs. He plays by his own rules. I mean, he was high up in the FBI. I mean, he literally probably felt as though they could manipulate whatever they needed to manipulate. That the FBI would protect what was able to come out, because the FBI censors its own documents, even those released through the Freedom of Information Act. They censor out the stuff that makes them look bad.
Of course, like that parrot story with John Lennon. You ever heard about that one?
No. Tell me about this. This is a good way to wrap the episode. Tell me about the parrot John Lennon story.
Oh, I love the parrot story.
And we'll end on this glorious tale.
Yeah, I was just going to laugh. Yeah, because the FBI's never been a political office before. It's never been manipulated by any sort of president to do its bidding, right?
Never. It's not like they went after Martin Luther King or his affair or anything.
No. Yeah. So the FBI, through the Freedom of Information Act, a lot of documents came out in the 90s and everything like that. And one of the things that came out was John Lennon's FBI file, because Lennon started getting covered after 1971 because he started doing anti-war protests and everything like that. And Nixon was going for re-election in 72, and Nixon never wanted to have to really run for office again. Because he
was like you in acting.
Yeah, he's like, I can't appeal to the American people, slop, sweat. I'm not.
Yeah.
We all get it. And so in the files that came out, the ACLU had to battle with the FBI for about 10 years to get all of Lennon's files uncovered, because there's big sections of it that were redacted or they wouldn't release. One of the things within them that they wouldn't let out for about 10 years after legal court was the parrot story, which was Lennon was in a party at the East Village in the mid-70s, and they had an FBI informant who was at the party who reported that the host at the party owned a parrot who every few minutes in conversation would say, "Right on."
That was their breaking news. Why the fuck would they redact that?
Because they didn't want to reveal that they were so stupid that they were paying someone routinely to give them stories about John Lennon being at an apartment with a parrot that said "right on."
I love it.
Text dollars at work.
Yeah, right, exactly. How much?
Right on.
Guy, that's amazing. Well,
I would love that job, though, wouldn't you?
It could be amazing. I mean,
you get to hang around John Lennon and get paid for it and talk to the FBI.
I was really hoping that the parrot story was going to be that the FBI swapped out someone's parrot and then trained it to repeat what it heard, so it would come back and it would be like, let's make everybody communists, like that's how they got their fucking intel from John Lennon.
I'm just imagining like a listening device, like a giant speaker that's dressed up to look like a parrot, really shittily in the apartment.
It's just a shoebox with a beak. Yeah,
they're like, just talk to it.
It'll be fine. It's
or they're like, John Lennon fucked a parrot. That's the parrot story. She heard about that parrot story. John Lennon fucked a parrot.
This is a great idea. This should be a web series just called The Parrot Story, and we can have a million different variations on John Lennon doing
the parrot story.
Yeah, The Parrot Story, the new web series on NPR. All right. Well, Laura, I'm going to wrap it up here. I would like you to tell everybody where they can find you, where they can see you, where they can hear you, all that stuff.
Yes. So if you want to get in contact with me, I would say follow my Twitter. I'm on Crawford Comic. And then you can find my Instagram under the same thing. And you search Laura Crawford Company. I'm all over the internet. I have an IMDb page. I just found out.
Boom, I saw that today.
Right? I know. I just found out. I just saw it today. So, you can find me on there, Instagram, Laura Crawford Comedy. So all kinds of great stuff coming out. I post all my shows there. So if you're in the Southern California area, you like live comedy.
There you go. That's right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been great chatting with you again. I enjoyed our first conversation.
I very much enjoyed it. Thank you, Liz.
Most definitely. So, guys out there, thank you for listening. I want to remind you to listen to our Monday show with Mark Clare with his in-depth interviews of leaders of the libertarian movement. We also are doing a special show now, Tuesdays, with 10-minute interviews with people that are in libertarian candidates running in campaigns, running in different states nationwide. You can listen to those every Tuesday now. On Wednesdays and John Odermatt on Fridays with Felony Friday, examining the ironically named justice system and exposing the dark underbelly of all that goes on within. So, guys, from me, Brian McWilliams, from Laura Crawford, from the Lions of Liberty, and from Electric Liberty Land, always stay plugged in to liberty.